Hello, Ross.
Jay, what's up?
Not too much, man. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. How does it sound?
Sounds wonderful. How are you able to hear me okay?
Yep, sounds perfect. It's
Great.
actually my first time to do a podcast with the mic. Which
Okay.
mic do you use? Do we already talk mics?
No, so I use uh s- this very gold Yeti Nano. It's pretty easy, but very common, and it's plug and play, which is good for me right now.
Yeah, I love that. I invested in just because the guy at the store said this is the best one, and
Nice.
primarily because of meditations, wanting to get like super
Mm.
high quality. So, but yeah, it's my first time to use it for a podcast. So,
Ah, sweet. Okay. It sounded good. Sounding clear. What is it? Sennheiser? Which one is
it's
it?
the Sure.
Okay.
That's as much as
Sweet.
that's as much as I know.
That's great. Well, it sounds wonderful. Sounds beautiful. Any any anything else for me, Ross, before we get
Oh yeah,
rolling?
one thing. Can you edit this? Because there's a chance that I'm gonna get a delivery that I
Oh
might have
yeah.
to answer.
No problem. Yeah, I
Okay,
could
cool.
totally cut things out and yeah,
I mean,
that's no
not
problem.
that people won't be able to handle that. Like, excuse me one second.
Right, right, exactly. But no worries. Yeah, I could totally edit. And if you say something, or if I say something, we're like, yeah, maybe we'll cut that out, then we could. Yeah, it's not no big deal at all.
I'm gonna try one aesthetic thing. Tell me what the light above me. Tell me if that's again. This is like new setup for me. Um, yes or wait, where is it?
Uh,
Is it
it
better without?
doesn't make that big of a difference, Ross, anyway.
Okay,
Yeah, either way
let's
that
leave it
feels
off
good.
then.
Sweet. All right. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, these
let's go for it.
awesome. Well, sounds good. All right, here we go. Hello, Ross. How are ya?
Well, Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of yours from your teachings on Peloton, and then have since continued to follow you. And I always was curious, your background and where you're coming from, because I love your teachings. And, I was wondering if we just start a little bit to get a little bit of a background about yourself, and if you could tell me where you're from and what got you first interested in yoga.
I always, whenever I get a question like that, my first reaction is like, how long do we have?
Right, right. Well, the
Uh,
uh the maybe the abridged variation.
yeah. And again, this is for people who know me. They've heard me say this 1,000 times, but it's such a good line that I'd still use it every time. One of my closest friends who I'm a big believer that you must bring people in your circle that just know how to cut you down to the quick. Like
Yeah.
that's those are the best friends in the world. And my friend Hunter is like he is the absolute best at just like really, I'll just say it like really bitchy humor.
Nice.
And so I use that word in hopefully an unoffensive way, but I mean it with love toward him because I love people like that. And he calls me Ross Land the effing plane Rayburn.
Nice.
So as you will see, the circumlocution
Nice.
is like a you it's an attribute and a flaw depending
As
on
a
the
lot of
circum.
things are. Yeah, double-edged sword, huh?
Yeah, but I am pretty good about bringing it back. So the abridged version of like bio slash yoga bio is, I think probably the headline is very late to the yoga game. the yoga journey relative to a lot of teachers, at least in my experience, how it used to be. I'm not, I'm I'm in my 56th year. I've turned 55 in February. I like to always give the year that I'm in, not that I'm the one that I'm heading towards, as a way of embracing the future. Also, something which annoys Hunter to, you know, to the nth degree. But I was 20. It was 19. I was born in 71, and I'm bad at math, and it was 1997. So I was 26, 27 when I started. And I honestly, I knew nothing about yoga. I grew up in Texas, South of Houston, Southern Baptist. Went to church like 4 times a week. Um, Loved it, and church was a little bit of a double-edged sword because I loved it so much. I loved the fellowship and the music, and but then at the same time, even though I didn't come out until I was 24, being gay in the 80s in Southern Baptist Texas, was not the most fun experience ever. And it was like
Yeah.
full of self-hatred, a lot of like things that I'm dealing with now about um what I was told about who I was, and then really the journey of rewriting that story, which yoga and meditation became arguably the most important um, salve or medicine for that healing journey. But it definitely embedded a love of God. At the time, I just said God, and now usually we'll refer to goddess or universe or whatever the um, personal vision someone has of deity. And in it embedded in me not only a love of God, but a love of spirit. And there was a political science degree and a journalism degree and thinking I was going to be a lot of different things, but eventually moved to LA because I loved acting and I thought I was good. Luckily found out that I wasn't, because unless you're great and lucky, you should, it's not a wonderful job.
Mhm.
And I was lucky but not great. So I was working a lot as an actor in LA, but I there was lots of evidence that I was bad. And I mean, I'm not being self-deprecating here. My favorite story to tell, one of my favorite stories to tell, is how first time I showed my boyfriend slash soon to be husband an episode of a show I was on. It was a show called Sweet Valley High. If anybody wants, don't look it up, but I'm sure someone will now.
Yes.
Um, like we didn't have sex for like 6 months after I showed him that episode. Like it was that bad. Um,
Nice.
but I uh, was acting, working enough, waiting tables that I didn't have to wait tables very much. Cut to doing an AIDS ride, which was a ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles to raise
Mm.
money for AIDS. This was in the 80s, so that was something that went on. There were quite a few of them around the nation. Didn't listen to my knee as it started to swell. Tore the meniscus. Someone said I didn't want to have surgery. Someone said you can do yoga to rehabilitate your knee. Went into class, and that's how it started. Brian Kest was my first ever class. He also then later gave me one of my first jobs. Um, and then there were a lot of wonderful teachers at the beginning: Sarah Ivanhoe, Sue Elkin, Naim Jazini. Then at Yoga Works, Sean Korn, Maria Zrati. Like it was kind of that 90s. I was sort of like the second generation of that night. I think that's really more of a third generation, because if you take the greats of the 70s and early 80s, um, then that early 90s generation like Mati, I was kind of next. Sort of after Madonna made it cool. And then yeah, I just started to fall in love with it. I did it all the time, way type A too much, and woke up one day hating acting so much that I was like, why am I doing this at all? I love yoga. Why don't I teach yoga? And that was the switch. And I didn't realize at the time that it was going to be the thing that I do the rest of my life. But so it was a slow evolution over the next few years, particularly when I met John Friend and Anusara Yoga, where I saw a whole new version of yoga that, wow, this is really kind of bringing me back to the spirituality of my youth, but simultaneously a love of the celebrating the physical and the sports side of me, the athletic side of me, and a way to weave that in and make money. That then, in hindsight, particularly was like, oh, this is what I was meant to do.
Interesting. Yeah, so
How'd I
very,
do for land the plane?
yeah, that's good. That's really good. But it's funny, right? Like, because you bring up your upbringing in something like church, community, spiritual meaning, and it sounds like that continues to be a big part of your life, obviously. But then also, the torn meniscus is what got you got you to give it a shot with yoga. And I didn't realize. Now I'm remembering because I trained Anya Sar with, and I've trained with Sue Elkin and Naeem. And yeah, yeah, so they're great, and and some of their, I'm sure some of the same teachers, but yeah, that's so interesting. I forgot that you were Anya Sara. Um,
Yeah, that was that. So so Naeem,
yeah,
so Sue was one of my very first teachers at Crunch,
LA.
pre Anasara, because this was before they started studying. They were the ones that found John and then brought it to the studio where I was working. Again, it's a bit of a convoluted story, but my first class with Naeem was in 1990. I'm gonna call it 1998, and it was in a boxing gym, and we were in like the stretching. There were like six of us in the stretching area in LA next to this boxing gym. And I'm like, who is, because Sue is, Sue would be like in, Surya Yantrasana, like with her leg up here. And she'd be like, God, I'm so tight today. I'm like, ugh, I cannot even with you. And, but Naeem was like, he was always built. And I was like, oh my God, like, because at that point I thought of, I wasn't a yoga guy because I'm pretty naturally muscular and I was sporty. And I was like, Naeem, oh my God, this guy is fit, buff, super masculine, but straight and also super feminine. And yeah, Naeem like opened up a lot of,
uh,
he broke down a lot of misimpressions for me.
hmm. Yeah, I love Naeem. It's such
I
a
get a little bit of teary when I think about it because that was like, I have a lot of love for them for those reasons.
sure. No, they're so committed and have been at it forever. And folks I look up to in a way that they've really created a whole community and business and have stuck with it for a very long time.
Yeah, we should shout out Dig is the name of their studio.
Yes,
Give
dig.
them a plug. So an unsolicited plug.
Yeah, I've spent many hours there. I think it's still in Lambertville, New Jersey, unless they moved. There's a couple moves in there, but
Yeah, you're right. I'm not sure either. I should not. I'm not sure.
I think it's there or right around there. But yeah, exceptionally great people and teachers, and and it's not always the case. I've don't know what your experience has been like in a teachers. We bring up John Friend, and for those who don't know, there's many yoga scandals out there, but John Friend is one of them who developed this amazing style of yoga and probably more of an amazing group of teachers and community. That community component is something that I still to this day long for and miss what Anusara brought as far as bringing people together like that. But but yeah, I've had many instances as I became a yoga teacher where teachers have let me down or feel as if they get to pull the veil off of the yoga teacher guys and find out they're not such great people, whether you're getting burned financially or getting burned in other ways with power, working at a studio. it's not always love and light, as they say in in Anusara used to say in Anusara world. But what was your experience like, you know, as you had navigated yoga maybe for the first time? It sounds like you had a great introduction to yoga with great teachers. And but was it always a happy, blissed out path, or what could you take me through what that experience was like as you were coming up learning yoga and then becoming a teacher?
Sure. And also, I always like to point out that I'm the perfect person to ask for this because I'm actually perfect and I don't have any
Right.
flaws. And therefore, since there's nothing wrong with me at all, there's no chance of me ever disappointing my
Yeah,
students.
yeah, right. You're enlightened.
Yeah, I mean and I say that of course is a massive joke
Right.
to, to say now what doesn't need to be said, which is in my opinion and definitely in my experience, there is no such thing as a teacher that is perfect or a teacher that if pulled back, if their layers are pulled back to a sufficient amount that they will disappoint, blah blah blah, betray. Um, I had someone tell me once, like, be prepared to be betrayed, severely betrayed 11 times in your life. And of course, in my, I think the point is not the 11, but it's the lesson that that's the way the world works. And this is one of the philosophies that I learned, but like from John and from many of the teachers like Douglas Brooks and Sally Kimpton and many of the other philosophy professors that he brought in, which is whether or not they follow it, the lesson of are you first looking in the mirror?
Mhm.
Are you asking yourself, are you self-reflecting and asking in a crisis moment or in a, beautiful moment, which is often harder sometimes than the crisis moment, to self-reflect in the bliss whilst I'm, not to mention, so of course, self-reflect in the mud, but to
Mhm.
self-reflect in the sunshine. If you can do both and everywhere in between and ask, what is my complicity or my contribution to this betrayal or to this abundance, you're much, I mean, to me, that's kind of what is really meant by a parigraha and the
Mhm.
not and non-attachment is not about detachment, but about distance enough to assess a perspective that gives you power. Like a
Mhm.
perspective that says, okay, it's about this percentage me and this percentage them. Therefore, I'm going to act or react in this way. As opposed to what I think definitely happened with me, and I'm pretty sure happened with a lot of people in the what I thought of as the first trial by Facebook, the Anasara scandal, which was like 2011, 12,
Mhm.
really 2012. And that was kind of, it was almost like one of the first kind of Me Too, one of the first kind of cancellations, at least in like in the post Facebook realm, in the social media world. And I just, it sounds almost so silly to articulate because once I feel like I say it, it's so obvious. It's natural for us as humans to vilify and to blame and just point
Yeah.
fingers as a way of protecting ourselves when something bad happens, particularly when it's something that you believe in. And in Anasara's case, was our livelihood. That this, the shitstorm happens, and it's the safe thing to just say that's his fault and that's blah blah blah, and not what did I do to potentially contribute to this. And the next question of how do I ascertain the value from the experience,
Mhm.
which with John, with Anasara, I mean, the vast majority of things that I have built my career on and have built my heart on and that have filled my heart were gleaned either from him or in a realm that he helped nurture.
Hmm.
And so for me to not be able to say like, you know, I will forever to say authentically, which I do, I will forever be grateful for him and for that. And then simultaneously be able to at least internally and sometimes externally say, this was effed up. This was not done the right way. This is how I will try to not do it when I get into another cult like environment, which is the word that everybody like kind of circles around and which is actually what we're talking about, which is one of my favorite conversations. And that is, how do you, how do we nurture culture without slipping into cult?
Hmm.
The same word, same root word. And that dynamic, moment to moment, day to day question, I think, is one of the most important questions for us politically, culturally, relationship wise. And it definitely was a huge lesson, a huge blessing from that betrayal that I would not change for a second. That's why I call it a blessing from that time, because I feel like it now gives me a little bit more. Uh, um, it gives me a greater.
Perspective.
I'm more likely to gain perspective because of that when it happens again, and that's really the lesson, which I think is at the core of your question. It's gonna happen. Teachers are gonna, f up. We're going to F up. How do we step back, see it in all these sort of complex, nuanced ways like culture and cult, value um and not,
Hmm.
and therefore in a complex, nuanced, hopefully honest, sacred way move forward affirmatively. And that, just to put it in a nice little bow, that to me is what the sutras and the Upanishads and the Tantras and the Agamas and the Bible, and like, that's actually really what it's, I think, what they're trying to say, which is step back, take a breath, and do your
Yeah.
best, and do your best.
Yeah. That is yoga, in my opinion, too, is the skill of that. And it's not easy. And that's why we practice, to willfully pause or force yourself to pause to experience the experience you're having. And yeah, there's so many threads of topics and different, yeah, themes that, as you were speaking, like resonate. Like to be an adult, Douglas would always say, you got to be wounded 3 times, one in power and one in love. I think the
Mm.
one was like in finance and power. Maybe that's the power one. But
That's funny. I have so many Douglasisms in my lexicon. I don't know that one. I like it.
yes, yeah, I think you need to, that's what, to be considered an adult, you have to be wounded by family and in
Mm,
love and power, like, which
mm.
could be financial, but yeah, yeah. So that came to mind too. I think sometimes it's difficult because people come to yoga very willing to be vulnerable over time and see the teacher through this starry-eyed lens. And I think some of the best teachers I've had post John Friend, who are through the same lineage, granted, brilliant teachers, have expressed pretty much what you said on the onset of this conversation, that I am not perfect. I am, and then a willingness to, now that I look back at it, to show that they're not, you don't love me, you love this practice, and I am not, by any means, without some blemishes. And I think that is the beauty of yoga, is this realization of taking a pause and recognizing where you stand or how you feel, and then moving forward in a way that's, like you said, affirms how you want to be in the world. And I think that's exactly what yoga is for me anymore.
Hmm.
What is it always a
That's well said.
spiritual?
I like how you said that.
Sweet. No, thank you. Yeah, I think we do speak this similar language, maybe because of the Anusara background, but I think sounds like we've got a lot of similar background, which is interesting. I had no idea.
Cool.
So, yeah, very cool. Yeah, I was curious if was yoga always this spiritual, meaningful pursuit for you, or were you like a lot of us? For me, it was entry point was power yoga. That was what was available, and what introduced me to it. It was a good fit for what I needed. But then quickly something had to shift for to keep my interest and seeking out more meaning and more philosophy that actually resonated in the real world. But how did it start for you initially? Were you also, it sounds like injury was maybe the catalyst, but you had always been a truth seeker, it sounds like. But could you take me through
Yeah.
that initial evolution, like how you started? Did you start pretty physical, or did you always think, no, there's something more going on here with yoga?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's it definitely started from physical because of the injury. And at the time I was more lit up uh by I mean I did an Ashtanga type of practice. I didn't really formally like I never really committed to it so much that I was doing like primary series every morning at 4:30, but I would go to Ashtanga classes. And then at the time in the in the late 90s in LA, and it was a golden age in the sense that um I mean I was like just this is so telling. Even though I lived in West Hollywood, I would go down to Santa Monica or Venice at least once a day and then take a class in West Hollywood at the gym, or there was a place where another one of my first teachers, a guy called Anthony Beninati, who actually went into business with Sue and Naeem. They started City Yoga, which then became a formerly Anusara studio in like 2099, like late 99. Um, but yeah, Eric Schiffman, as I mentioned, Mati, Sean Korn, Annie Carpenter. Like, so there was an Iyengar group that I would go to.
Hmm.
Um, but then like Brian's power class um, and to to Bikram and like a very like it was across the board, but it was definitely more fit. I loved the physical. I loved the sweat. And
Hmm.
in hindsight, to be candid, I loved the ego dopamine competition of it because I was strong and because it was hand balance, arm balance heavy. It was like, look at me, look what I can do.
Sure.
Um, and in a lot of tellings of that, it would be easy to interpret me kind of dissing that as a less than whatever a less than spiritual way, air quotes in case you're listening to this, um uh entry point, gateway to a, again, air quotes, spiritual practice. I didn't at the time, but I definitely do now, and I'm saying it this way to make a, a deeply held philosophical point, which is I now mostly define spirit as the umbrella or the ground, to up down perspective, whichever way you want to look at it, the encasement of all of it.
Hmm.
And so I because I get a little bit annoyed and now just compassionate, annoyed, then compassionate with people who set the two things aside, like that the physical and the spiritual are distinct and even disconnected, and to push back on that and say, like, come on, I'm a perfect example of I went for an arguably a physical reason and was there for a physical negative reason, meaning I was just like competing to be the best, look at my crow. But seeds were planted, and whether those were new seeds or seeds that were, or it was seeds that were there and they were actually being watered by Brian's kind of get out of your ego spirituality to, Douglas Brooks and Sally Kempton's beautiful Tantra non-duality lessons about, um, that ultimately we're all the same. And so it's completely, I think, a kind of a bit of a silly, kind of like a little bit of folly to try to like know exactly where the line is or was on what was efficacious or what was catalytic relative to me moving forward or saying it's not, continuing and being where I am today and who I am today. So instead of really trying to figure that out, that's a long way for me to get around saying now I look at it as all the same, or at
Hmm.
least I look at it as all the same on a deep level with a higher, more call it superficial level of virtue and value. And that, if you're walking into the room and if you're getting into the room because of that deep fundamental love for spirit and virtue and character and generosity and kindness and love and peace and all of those fundamental things that I think would fall into the category of truth seeking, and that's your motivator and your reward, good on you. And I celebrate that. And in fact, I'm like, lucky you. Or maybe unlucky you, because then it maybe came to you a little bit easy, which is another conversation.
Hmm.
Versus, someone more like me who had to kind of see like, okay, well, yeah, that's more superficial and dopamine ego related, but yet that's what I needed at the time. And
Hmm.
sometimes that is what I need. And as opposed to saying that that is, inherently bad, trying to find like, okay, well, luckily I didn't go down the bad version of it. Like, in other words, I didn't get addicted to it to the point where I wasn't um, finding other things from it, that I wasn't learning, or what, it wasn't opening me up to other facets of myself that you could argue are more virtuosic.
Hmm.
So again, it's that nuanced thing. As a human, as a teacher, as as a society, can we say like, okay, we're going to use labels as that are somewhat, on a spectrum, or have polarity or have hierarchy, like physical, spiritual, and that's cool because that helps us then at least orient us to the
Hmm.
world. But can we also say, well, spiritual has definite value? I think that's inarguable. But so does the things that we don't call. So does the physical. And again, with a perspective to see ourselves for who we are, then choose from that where we want to go. I want to move toward a more spiritual, truth seeking life. Or, and this is like, this again, this is going to piss a lot of people off, but like, before I became a vegan, vegetarian, I'm now pescatarian. And I was like, I don't want to stop eating meat. Because I grew up in Texas, and like, I was like, plants are sentient too. So what is this whole, how do you know that plants aren't more harm than animals are? All those arguments. And
Hmm.
basically, um, I was like, and I almost lost my train of thought. I was basically like, don't, yeah, hold on. We're gonna have to edit this.
No worries.
I did do a little bit of circumlocution.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So so I used to always like defend the I didn't want, that I wanted to eat meat, and I'm like, I know a lot of vegetarians who are assholes.
Right. Right.
So we have to be careful about what we say is spiritual good, or what we say is good, i.e. spiritual, and have what we say is in a yoga realm what is bad, i.e., just purely physical, and look at what is your relationship to it.
Hmm.
And so, again, to get way back to your point, I started in a more physical way, and then later on really started to started to realize that this was reminding me of the spirituality of my childhood and how much I love talking about beauty and truth and love and peace and human connection. And somewhere along the way, and this again I usually attribute Sally more than anybody, to seeing that those two things are not as distinct as I used to think they are. That
Hmm.
there is and can be just as much spirituality in a bakasana as there is in a meditate in a in a siddhasana, and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah, I think it's really well said. Always feel like it's finding the divinity in the seemingly mundane. It could be going to see your family. It could be, you know, dressing up and showing up to that family event, as much as it is holding a perfect handstand. But I think we were quick to cast judgment on both or one or the other when really the divinity is in the, like I said, the details in that person and the sometimes the seemingly mundane day-to-day stuff. Um, yeah,
I mean,
I
yeah, and I love that's the way that I love the way you put it, because oftentimes it is the mundane that is the
right,
most that is the most spiritual, or that can be let's put it this way, that can be the most eye-opening.
totally, absolutely. I love
And
it.
that's boy, this is you're gonna love this segue slash plug. I mean, that's what I wrote my book about, because I hated meditation for the first 10 years I was teaching it. And Sally was the one who said to me, like, look, you don't have to follow, like, what I experience in meditation is not what you're going to experience. Like,
Hmm.
you're more of a, I'm, as you can tell by my energy, I think I would have been diagnosed as ADD or ADHD as a kid if that would have been happening in the 80s. It was really tough for me to sit still.
Hmm.
And so she led me over many, many years to seeing that running or working out or um, anything mundane can be meditation if done with intention and awareness. And that I was like, how's no one written this book yet? And that's what Turning Inward was about, was inviting people to not change their patterns, but to change their perspective,
Hmm. I
or
love
not
that.
necessarily change your patterns, I should say.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. I just wonder if you could take me back to how you became a Peloton yoga teacher. Um, was that something that you sought out, or what was that like?
Yeah, no, the opposite. I joke because the story that comes into my head right away was that it was a long series of interviews. I mean, it was like four auditions and a bunch and like four interviews.
Oh shoot.
And the final interview was kind of a rubber stamp. And at the time, and this was in 2018, it was pre-COVID, so it was before it had gone public and before kind of the expansion that happened with Peloton during the COVID, during the pandemic. But it was pretty big company already at that point in 2018. And yet not only did I not know really who they were, and by the time I'd done fourth interviews, like, and to be fair to myself, I've been traveling around the world for 11 years teaching yoga and had spent
Mhm.
very little time in the United States for 11 years. Um, and so I didn't know who the Kardashians were, to be fair to Peloton. So the fact that I didn't know what Peloton was, that puts that into perspective a little bit. And I'm sitting in the final meeting, which is perfunctory, with the president of the company, and in walks a guy, sits down and is nice, and I say hello, and like, and remind me or tell me what your role is in the company, and he's like, I'm the CEO.
Good start. Yeah.
I mean, I got the job, so. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and his name is now a friend of mine. His name is John Foley, and he was one of the founders. And I always reminded John that I'm 3 months older than him.
Nice.
So whenever he would complain about stuff, I'd be like, John, I don't want to hear it. I'm older than you. Um, yeah, a woman named Kristen McGee, who's a pretty well-known yoga teacher, had taken my a workshop ages ago. I always give her, shout outs, blessings, you know, Suprema. Like she called me one day, never answered the phone. Even back then, didn't never answer the phone. Answered it. We're starting this thing. You might be interested. It'll mean you'll have to come off the road, which they thought I wouldn't want to do, but I was actually excited to do.
Nice.
Because after 11 years, I mean, it was 3.3 million miles in 11 years, 33 countries. And oftentimes in Asia and Europe, and teaching mostly yoga therapeutics trainings through a translator, which again wouldn't trade for anything, but it was a fantastic life. I got to see the world, and I got to, I won't even go on with the amazing experiences I had, but I was never home.
Mm.
And so when, the opportunity at the time, I didn't know A, what it was, and B, that it was going to be a successful company, especially yoga and meditation, because they were asking me to come on and be one of the first teachers. And I also then ran the department for 5 years. I wasn't hired to run the department, but I was hired as an instructor, and then I was the oldest. So they're like,
Nice.
"Do you want to organize the taxonomy and all that?" Um, and so yeah, I was like, I jumped at it. I was like, and it's one of I don't know if I count, attribute this to my mom or to being gay and always having to like kind of change things and never get too attached or whatever. You know, armchair psychology behind that. Go for it. Um, but I consider it an attribute that I can be like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And like this business, and I had just signed a big contract too. I don't want to say it because it's like, who knows, like who's going to hear this, but I just signed a big contract to do 5 years of teacher trainings with a big studio chain somewhere else in the world.
Mm.
And I kind of had to burn that bridge without, so there was it was a fairly consequential decision. However, my instincts, I did want to have spend more time at home, but my instincts were, this is new, this is different, this is scary, and I love that. I was like, do something not scary, unsafe, but scary will challenge you, and it definitely did because I went from teaching like 11 years of I can't even remember. I think the last hour and a half class I taught before 2018 was 2007.
Wow.
And, maybe or maybe not, but I was used to teaching 3 hour workshops, not to mention 30-hour trainings. And I went to teaching that one of the auditions was a 10-minute yoga class. I was
Oh
like,
man.
what is that?
Yeah.
And to be able
Wow.
to teach a 5-minute peace meditation that, I mean, if you've never done a meditation in 5 minutes, to have to do an intro, an establishment of kind of the rules, meaning for people who've never meditated before, which was at Peloton scale, was going to be thousands of people, that this was going to be their first meditation. So to invite them into an authentic experience, set it up so that they're not going to think to themselves, I suck at this. Create an environment that is has that invitation, but simultaneously is rich and um, substantive, and not, hollow, not axiomatic, about, axiomatic spirituality relative to peace. and have a narrative and carry that through and gives time for silence in 5 minutes. I did not know how to do it. I don't know if I ever really did it, but I know I got much better at it, whether it was a 10-minute vinyasa class, 20-minute vinyasa class, or a 5-minute peace meditation. That skill of having to be concise, particularly for me, to be clear and to be careful,
Hmm.
which I think is something that I didn't really understand that much because I was always in the safety of the room. And being careful about what you say, knowing that it's going to be at scale, not for the purpose of not getting canceled, which is often how that's interpreted, but for the purpose of connecting,
Hmm.
for the purpose of like I want to teach something real and substantive and not just like to really actually help someone go from A to B relative to the to peace or calm, but at the same time not say something that those meditations are all up there now that 10 years later is not going to trigger somebody. To choose your words such that you thread that needle. um that was a challenge I never foresaw, and it was a training that I will always be grateful for. um and it was exciting and I loved it, and think about it even in this moment, you know, having both um care and carelessness simultaneously.
Yeah, you did a great job at it. I mean, beloved teacher for me and for thousands, maybe millions of folks through your work before Peloton and then at Peloton. You really hit a nice chord that felt deeply heartfelt and careful. You know, it's refreshing to listen to a teacher who's you tell like they really care
Mm.
and will resonate. That messaging will resonate forever. It's profound. Most teachers would think this is a dream situation to work at Peloton. You have sense left. What are the best aspects? You kind of brought up, it sounds like some really deep, heartfelt, great aspects. Maybe that is it. But if there's any other aspect that you found particularly great, or what was the most challenging or difficult, why move on from that?
Well, the thing that I did, one of the things I loved the most, I was so surprised by was how many intimate relationships. First of all, the team of instructors, that I missed the most because not everybody was my best friend, but there were quite a few that we became close. It's such a
Mm.
unique environment. You bond over that.
Dennis seems like a party guy. I've
Yeah,
hung out with Dennis before.
you have.
I
You
have.
hung.
I have had beers with Dennis. Yeah, yeah. And then I've interviewed Matt, but I've hung out with Dennis. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, so Dennis is I again a lot. I feel like I don't know how many times I can tell these stories, but it is one of my favorite stories where I was coming through the airport. This was a few years in. I was starting to get recognized quite a bit, and I was in Mexico going through security at the airport. And you know how like you're at security, like you're not thinking anything. And the woman behind me was definitely weird behind me, and I was like, okay, maybe she's nervous or whatever. We
Uh-huh.
get to the other side and we're putting our stuff. She leans over and she's like, she goes, "Excuse me, are you Ross Rayburn from Peloton?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I am."
Yeah.
She said, "I love Dennis Morton's yoga classes." I'm like,
Nice.
"So do I." Yeah, so I
That's
love and
nice.
miss a lot of them, and there were a lot of great things. But the intimacy with students, I was so surprised.
Hmm.
Like again, the quick version of it, because I haven't analyzed this a little bit, was I think the wall that I naturally put up when I was teaching in person, sort of for a number of different professional, but just whatever reasons, the teacher student wall relationship,
Uh-huh.
or let's call it a scrim or a veil.
Yeah.
um, I didn't have that wall up because the screen was the wall. And so
Uh-huh.
when students would be there in person or now, like, I think you're an example of it, or like, or maybe it's just that I'm a little bit older and more mature, but I think it is actually that it taught me to be more open and be
Hmm.
more intimate and in relationship with my students slash community. And so that was kind of this paradoxical that you'd think like, oh, you're teaching through a screen and therefore you lose something. It's like I found something
Hmm.
in term, in relative to that. And yeah, but at the same time, I will. Peloton changed my life for the better in innumerable ways. But at the same time, I was really ready to go because my husband still travels for work, and I was missing everything. And I wanted to kind of have that life back. The book did really well. I wanted to do other things that Peloton would have let me do, but I wouldn't have had time to do because it's such
Hmm.
an all-encompassing job. Um, and so yeah, I was absolutely sad to go, but I was also kind of like when I was willing to move to Peloton, I'm like, you know what, Ross, even though it's scary because it's a paycheck and health insurance and all that, and
Yeah.
I worked for myself for 20 some odd years and then 5 years of having a really nice paycheck and a company. And so letting go of that was scary. Um, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I can say that now, 2 years later, it was absolutely the right thing to do because I've never been more excited about my teaching in my life,
Hmm.
even though I didn't know. And in that 2 years, it's there have been moments where I thought I had made a mistake leaving.
Hmm. Yeah, you know, again, that's yoga in my opinion and meditation, this understanding who you are and what you want and this dynamic relationship between stability and freedom, right? Anisara and yeah. And a willingness to again Anisara let things break down, burn things to the ground sometimes even to let something better flourish. And you sound like you could do a master class on that, like a willingness. It's tough, right, for folks to take a leap, or whether it's professionally, personally, and it sounds like the biggest turning points in your life have been this, what probably felt like a leap to some capacity, but you felt in your heart that you had to do it, and you did it. So, man, I commend you because those things are not easy.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And there is a part of me too that um I mean, I guess you could call it like a humble part of me, but honestly, it's also it's even a bit of like a self check. Like
Hmm.
humility is not really what it is, a bit in the kind of the humility realm, but it's also like, hey, Ross, don't forget that there is a privilege aspect to it. That they're like, for instance, if Chris, I don't, if I didn't have enough savings, or if Chris, if I didn't have a partner that was making money, I don't know if I would have had that courage to leave, or name the other kind of privilege. Again, I don't, it's not, I'm not being like, what's it called? Like a faux, it's not a faux humility. It's that I
Hmm.
think it's important as someone who's sitting in the role of the teacher in a way right now to as I used to always, whenever I teach teacher trainings, I was like, have an antenna for when you're put on a pedestal, because the
Hmm.
moment you're put on a pedestal, be the first one to step off of it before someone knocks you off of it.
Hmm.
And so
Love that.
there is a bit of that of just saying like, yes, thank you very much for recognizing that courage, but at the same time, if this is a teaching for someone, also simultaneously recognize that if you're, because of a lack of privilege, you're not safe to make that courageous leap, don't be hard on yourself then. Like, again, that's a nuanced balance of stability and freedom. Like, courage of jumping into the unknown, that leap into freedom sounds great by itself, but it is always resting on some level of innate stability, whether that's your belief in yourself or your financial situation or whatever, because you still got to be smart.
Hmm.
Now, can you be thinking you're being smart and you're actually just being stuck? Of course. But I think making sure that being, when you're saying something sweet to me about that leap, it's important, like, for people, in my opinion, to hear that it's never simple, and to give
Right,
yourself
right.
permission for it to not be simple as well.
I do appreciate that. It never lends itself to simplicity. It's
Yeah.
a multifactorial world and life, and you've recently put out a lot in public on how you've evolved, how you practice yoga, how you teach yoga. You know, after a long time at this, things are evolving for you even today. And I'm curious what that next
You
evolution.
just called me old, right?
There's this, there's one, there's a couple of things you probably experienced this, but I've somebody gave me the advice is probably good advice, but they're like a couple of things you don't ever bring up in yoga class: age, weight, looks, those sort of obvious things, but
Yeah.
that was not meant to be.
Listen,
It
and as
was,
that's why say I'm in my 56th year. It's that part of me that believes, and this is a cool discussion, I think, to have at some point. And like, we don't have to have it now, but it is actually a Kali practice. Um,
hmm, how
that
do you mean?
But so for a lot of people who, if you don't know, Kali is one of the goddesses. Um, she I revere her so much because she's the one that's has tongue sticking out, eyes bulging out, skulls, weapons. She's usually seen as scary, but
Hmm.
the way I was taught, that Kali represents the diminution or the decline, the death that we practice at the end of every yoga class in corpse pose. Like,
Hmm.
corpse pose shavasana is not morbid. It's not something to be feared. Like, Kali is not meant to be feared. It's a practice of the inevitable. And that in the practice of the corpse and in the practice of Kali, you actually, you don't invite it, but you practice it. And therefore, on
Hmm.
this micro level, you start to become macro free.
Yes.
And or that's the hope. And so my little, by saying the year, which is actually more truthful, because when you turn 55, you're finishing your 55th year. This is like my little sermon. This is me now
Your
this
TED
is me now
Talk.
at the pulpit.
Yeah.
Um, you're finishing your 55th year. So therefore, the moment you turn 55, you're starting your 56th year. So it's more
Hmm.
truthful to say I'm in my 56th year, but to most people, they just hear that as you're embracing a higher number, which is bad. And it's kind of my little shavasana practice.
Hmm.
And so I think of it as like kind of important, to do what I think was the genesis of the question, which is, how do we embody this stuff?
Hmm. Yeah. I love that. In any other, what other ways are you reconsidering how you look at yoga these days? I mean, I think we got a pretty clear picture from just hearing your responses already, but I just want to make sure I gave you an opportunity and maybe selfishly to know where you stand. If there's anything else, I know like I said, I think it shines through with your responses a lot. I feel as a teacher, but I just want to make sure if you had anything else you wanted to add in how you're evolving or changing your perspective on yoga.
Oh, cool.
Or, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll take this in two ways. Like the first one, I'll the second one I'll go the the one that's more related to what I'm doing professionally, I'll take second.
Okay.
The one that is more philosophical or well, yeah, just more broad. Um, is I don't exactly know when I started to think this or say this or which teacher, maybe it was a multitude of bunch of teachers that led me toward this, which is the embrace that pretty much anything can be yoga.
Hmm.
Um, I was I don't again we'd have to like spend a lot more time on the psychology behind like my allergy to this is yoga and this is not. And I certainly understand where that comes from, both, the like when the very complex and difficult conversation about appropriation. Um, and I think it's an important conversation. I usually try to frame it as, especially being a white guy who has studied for, but who has studied for many, many years. Um, most facets of yoga, meaning whether you think of that as the eight limbs or you think about it as purely philosophical and non physical, or you think of it as purely physical. I can go toe to toe. I think I can. I say this not self-aggrandizingly, but I can go toe to toe with someone who teaches biomechanics only and alignment only, and I can go toe to toe with someone who is steeped in Samkhya, Advaita Vedanta, Kashmir Shaivism, Jainism, and the whole list. And again, I say that not to like be a little bit of a bully with what I know, but to say that I believe in all of those things, but yet I'm a white guy, so I understand that why someone would say talk about like appropriation, for instance, but I would hope that they would see that it's appreciation and that I
Hmm.
am usually not appropriating, and I definitely don't want to appropriate when, say, I inject myself into a conversation that is maybe a moment when I actually do often hand the mic to someone from Southeast Asia or who from Southeast Asian, Desi has Desi heritage, versus saying like, no, I actually have an experience with this and I can speak to the Indian tradition on this topic. Um, so that is an important conversation to say like, yes, something should be and not be yoga, but at the same time, I also look at it very simply and say yoga is about union. And if you are uniting action with intention, it's hard to say that that's not some version of yoga. And in my opinion, it is often high yoga, or at least high spirituality, when you can stand in front of, which is something this will be my segue, professionally want to do, which is I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy fan and
Boy.
stand in front of, the Cowboys and say, you know, when it's fourth down or when it's third down or fourth down in the Super Bowl and like the moment of greatest tension and you take a breath and you hold yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually in a in a beautiful way so that your action is imbued and um, so that your action is imbued with love,
Mhm.
which is not something you would correlate with a football
Yeah.
situation. But that kind of love for yourself and your teammates and the art of sport, that love in that crucial moment, if you can just take that one breath, that's the thing that's going to help you not choke Dallas Cowboys
Yeah.
and actually win another Super Bowl versus not thinking of that moment as having any yoga potential. And you go into the pattern of compression that does make you choke and not play at your highest.
Mhm.
And for me, that's almost more interesting yoga is to teach like how do we bring intentionality into, and this is the segue into what I'm actually doing, into our posture, our mind, and our breath, moment to moment, day to day, anytime, anywhere, so that our yoga is not necessarily about class or pose, but it is about actualizing the best version of you in a moment.
I love that. I am an Eagles fan, so I hope you don't ever teach them this.
I love that that's what you got from that.
So
No, no, that to
I've
me is the best moment. Like from like all of that, and I seriously do love that about you so much that you're like, that's all great, Ross, but F
go
you, I'm an
Eagles.
Eagles fan.
So I hope you never get to teach them that joke. I did teach the Eagles way back when, and they won the Super Bowl that year. But it was
Okay,
so
okay, stop.
go Birds.
Are you serious?
I mean, I taught them a little bit. I taught the trainers. Yeah, I taught the trainers more so.
Okay,
But
you are now my idol. Like seriously, like full stop. I'm not kidding. That's so cool.
sorry, it was a very heartfelt message, and I just kind of derailed your
No, no, no. Let's go
thoughts.
with this. This is football. This is always more important. Anyone who doesn't think this is more important, this shows you how much we really do have in common. Um, I always root for NFC East. So like,
Okay.
if the cow like that's the one thing that we can share. Like, if the Cowboys are not playing, I root for NFC East.
We do not share that in common, actually.
You know Jen Sherman from Peloton?
Yeah, she's a big Eagles fan.
Oh yeah, yeah, she's huge. Like we have to connect
Uh-huh.
you with Jen.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, yeah. That's so, yeah, that's so funny.
Sorry to everybody. Sorry to everybody
No.
out there who's just like, what are they talking?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. No, I mean, I do love the sentiment. I so I think you and I are in similar wavelengths with our thoughts. There's some capacity in that, and it's I really do love it, and I think it's a really meaningful pursuit to have that sort of self-awareness, to teach it, to facilitate that for others too. Is just it's um, yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, but it seems like it's very meaningful. I can't think of anything more meaningful of a pursuit. So I appreciate you sharing that and telling us where you're at. Are you actually going to try to teach the Cowboys?
I mean, it's yes, it's
Yeah,
I put
nice.
it out there all the time. I mean, I haven't. I have a few connections, but
Uh-huh.
I haven't pulled those like mixed metaphors. I haven't pulled those strings yet. So basically, the in the 2 years since I left Peloton, um, a lot of it was spent on dealing with some family stuff, which I didn't expect. So that slowed down my transition of like what I'm gonna do next. Um, Also, I worked with an executive coach who was fantastic in helping me crystallize like what does this next chapter look like.
Hmm.
But the luckily I came to a clear understanding with her help and with Chris's help, my husband and many friends, to realize that I do love teaching people about posture, about not mindfulness, but about being smart and using your mind well, and about breath. And so it was crystallized down into what I call strategic posture, posture with intention, helping Dak recognize when his posture is the problem, mental clarity as opposed to clearing your thoughts, and then impact breath, which is using and choosing a breath that will impact the situation to move you to a place where you need to be slowing down your breath when you're nervous, like when you're on a date or you're about to interview, and using breath to impact the moment.
Hmm.
And so it's short exercises and long seminars and ways to integrate that into your life in a moment and to your life over the course of your life. Um, and it is still now developing, into what does that look like for, say, teaching a seminar at a, um, to a marginalized community, say trans youth, since it's Pride Month when we're recording this, to go into, an environment where, say, trans youth need to be uplifted, or going into a C-suite and helping them with leadership and creativity and how posture, mind, and breath can help those things.
Hmm.
Or in an athletic environment, I love sports so much, and how to help a dancer who is an athlete, or a football player who's an athlete, use their posture, their mind, and their breath to both affirm and elevate their performance. So I actually refer to myself now more as a performance strategist than a yoga teacher, but I still
Hmm.
call it Ross Rayburn Yoga. Like, I have a Substack that I'm putting out a lot of things now, which is Ross Rayburn Yoga, and my website is Ross Rayburn Yoga. I still call it yoga because it is imbued with yogic philosophy and does include meditation and ideas from from the
The
different
yoga tradition.
lineages and teachings. So I think it's going to continue to be called yoga, because, but we'll see. But that's sort of what I'm doing now.
Nice. Wonderful. It sounds great, Ross. You have a gift for meeting people where they're at, the audience, and a real gift for feeling heard by you, and also to um, you hit a nice chord in your teaching and just talking to you of bringing in universal, bigger thoughts and then honing it into like a very focused point. It's a real pleasure to get to talk to you and get to know you a little bit better. And very heartfelt. You could feel you're being honest and truthful, and it really shines through with just speaking with you. And so it means the world to me to have this time with you. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour.
At least, right?
At
I mean,
least.
the
And
good
I
news
mean,
is the good news is we can.
yeah, totally. And
I mean, we'll
yeah,
stop recording, but like, now we're friends, you know?
right. I love that. Yeah, that means a lot to me. And yeah, I really will take you up on chatting with you more. And yeah, it's great to have another friend. Great to have you on. It's a
Yeah,
pleasure.
and practice together too. Like, let's,
Definitely.
if I'm up there, you're down here, like, we'll like do a couple of do some asana together.
I would love that. Yeah, I need more of that in my life. I've somehow managed to only teach, you know how that goes, and then sometimes teach in isolation online, but then sometimes in person. But it's nice to be alongside fellow teacher and just be in conversation. There's a third thing, a value add, and that would mean the world to, yeah, to do that with you sometime.
Thanks, Jake. I agree. When I would 100% love that as well.
Beautiful. Ross, I think we've got your information out there, but is there anything else we want to put out there for folks before I let you go?
No, I mean, thank you for saying that. I just to reiterate, so the primary social media uh, Substack is my primary portal right now. It's new, but it's exciting because the meditations and videos and conversations can exist there. So that's Substack Ross Rayburn Yoga, and then Instagram is Ross Rayburn Yoga. Website is Ross Rayburn Yoga. All pretty easy to find.
Wonderful. I will link that for folks. For those who are brand new to Ross, go check him out. He's doing exceptionally great things. This is just a taste of the personality and
And
the
Jake, I'll interrupt
meaning
you
he
and
brings.
say that it's because the fun part of for those of you that can't see, it's we talked about mics earlier, and this is the mic that I can use my sleep meditation on. So,
I'm already dozing off a little bit.
well,
That's
as another friend of mine says, like Ross, you've been putting me to sleep with your stories for years.
sounds like you have great friends. That don't take yourself too crazy seriously, right?
Right.
That's so great. I love it. So yeah, I did check out the Substack, folks. Go check it out. All this stuff lives there if you want the meditations and to get to learn more about you and your writings and musings and all of the wonderful things that you're doing. And so yeah, I appreciate it, Ross. I'd love to do this again sometime.
You bet, Jake. Thank you so much again, and thanks to everybody out there.
All right. Take care, man. All right. We are all set.